Hi, this is Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Panda. So when my brain does something and when I catch it, I go, ooh, I got to record this and get it down. So this is why a lot of my courses are in the works. They're very much in the progress, is because I have to catch myself doing it so I can stop and then take my RAS and then zoom in and reverse engineer what it is I do. So this is something I've been doing. Omniscient zooming. Omniscient zooming. This is something. So this is 100% part of psychology. This is Pythagorean psychology meets math meets one more thing. It's psychology meets math meets logic. I'm going to call it logic for a lack of a better word right now, but it's not logic. Math is logic, so that's kind of redundant. But I need to hear math so I can understand that it's, oh, I'm looking for common denominators. And then psychology, this is Pythagorean psychology, but I really don't want to call it logic. It's mental diversification. That's what it is. So this is mental diversification. This is an advanced skill. But, well, let's see how advanced it really is. Maybe you guys just need the instruction booklet. Maybe it's quite easy, actually. So let's break this down. So mental diversification is when you consciously take your mind and you do things with it because it's logical to do so. So here's what it was. I noticed my daughter. So I'm going to give you an example to start. And then I'm going to break down the example and I'm going to break down the theory. So I'm going to start with example and then I'm going to go into theory. That way I can set the stage for you. And then I'm going to hypothesize and just explore this and pull it apart. This is really Pythagorean psychology. However, it is requiring two tools to do this, which is the mental diversification and the mathematics with common denominators. So here's how it works. So my daughter is an artist. I am not. And I saw this thing she's got where she draws these little boxes and she's got little pictures that she's drawn. And then she has these little words like notes sketched in. And I went, what is that? And she's like, did a whole, oh, don't look at it. And I'm like, so I contacted my dear friend Matt, who is also an artist. He's a master. He's actually the master in charge of our art department. So I messaged him. And I'm like, is this an artist thing? And he's like, yeah, this is what I do. And he broke down his process. And then my daughter came in and she showed me some internet examples of what other artists do. And I went, now my psych brain turned on and went, that's, I know what that is. So this is where I zoomed out. So I was looking at the artist. So this is the point of the artist. And I was looking at the artist. And then I looked and went, okay, so it's not my daughter. It's the artist. This artist does it. This artist does it. This artist does it. I had 4 points of data. She showed me 2 examples. And I went, all right, so this isn't my daughter thing. This is an artist thing. So we start with the subject, which in this case would be my daughter. Yes, I use my children for science research. It's safe. They consent. They know. So I'm started off with the subject. And then it spans out to the subject, which, well, not the subject, it spans out to the topic, which in this case is the artist. But I have information from other learning avenues, from other criteria. So I recognize the pattern. So now we're at pattern recognition. And I recognized the pattern and went, that's not art. That's human being. And that was my whole hypothesis, was this isn't the artist, this is the human being. So then I spanned out. So it's subject to artist. And then I started to look and I could see how I as a scientist did that, how I as the dancer did this, how I as the writer did this. And I went, no, this is not a subject. This is the human being. So now I spanned out even further. And I looked at all of the examples of the human being. And I said, what is this? Now there's 2 parts here. There is what I'm studying, which is literally referred to as deconstruction of the mental process. So we're going to call this deconstruction. And I talk about this later, but it's deconstruction of the mental process. And it's also intuitive learning. So those are 2 really massive points. Now, what I'm doing is actually deconstructing the psychology of learning. That's what I'm really doing here. Deconstructing the learning process, the psychology of learning. And in order to do that, I identified the deconstruction of the mental process. Now, all of this is being done with a skill called the Omniscient point of view navigation. Point of view navigation is the ability to take your point of view and zoom out, zoom in, zoom span. So I can look at the subject, the artist, and then the human mind. So I'm practicing something called that omniscient point of view. Now, in order to find common denominators, you have to have the ability to zoom out and then zoom in. I really think this is going to be easy for all of us. I really do. I really think this is going to be something that once you understand the abstract of it, I think we naturally do this. We're just consciously unaware of it. So this is literally taking conscious awareness and applying it to these methods, which is exactly what mental diversification is. It is the conscious awareness being applied to mental diversification. So that's really what this is. This is a branch of mental diversification. So I started to notice the pattern recognition, and then I zoomed out using the omniscient point of view, which is, and really what that is I am using my RAS on purpose to filter and unfilter. When you understand how to use your RAS to filter and unfilter, you can strategically move your scope wherever you want it, but you can also zoom in, you can zoom out. The entire RAS is nothing but a perspective scope. So now I'm looking at the deconstruction of the mental process. So now I'm zooming into that and I'm analyzing how a scientist does it. Now for me, I will go onto my Zoom calls exactly like this one. I will sit down and I will bring up one of my whiteboards and I will write out a whole diagram to show the abstract concept of what I'm doing. While I am doing that, I will then write little document notes. And that is literally what all of my blog is over at uneducated.com. It is a full, that's my research. And what it is the deconstruction of the mental process on psychology, physics, and/or mathematics. Now, stepping into the world of linguistics, I do that also. Stepping into the world of logic, that is exactly what a logical proof is. Now, let's take a look at theater and stage. This is where you're walking around on theater and stage and you're reciting the same thing over and over again. With love's light wings did I o'erperch these walls, for stony limits cannot. And there it is again. So let's stop, let's do it again. And this is where you see a director pausing the play to go, okay, now do it again, now do it again, now do it again. And it is the point where you break down the theory and you analyze it. With love's light wings did I o'erperch these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out. So now you've got delivery. You're not analyzing all the different fine-tuned moments. You look into writing. And this is where I would write something as an author, and then I would read it out loud to listen for the rhythm, the tone, and the pulse of something. And then breaking that down into music. Oh my God, music. Music is a whole mathematical, yeah. So music, you have measures, and you would just sit there and work on one measure at a time, breaking down the metric in quite strategic precision to get it exactly where you want it to with the physics and the harmony. So while all of this is coming together, what we're really doing is deconstructing the mental process. And apparently, you know, this makes a lot of sense. Okay, I need a minute here. The Rodin Museum suddenly makes all the sense in the world now. I'm going to tell you about the Rodin Museum. Okay, I have no idea if I'm saying that word right. Everyone knows who Rodin is. He is the dude who sculpted the thinker. The thinker and the kiss. That is his work. In Philadelphia, there's the Rodin Museum. I went to the Rodin Museum. It was weird. You got the thinker out front, and then you got the kiss inside, and then there was this room. And Balzac. I have been trying to figure this out for 30 years. 20 years of me trying to figure out Balzac and Rodin. And now I understand it. Now it's all coming together, and it's now making sense. So he had the face of Balzac, and then he sculpted the bust of Balzac, and then he sculpted a little these were all miniatures. These were all like little miniatures, and it was the face of Balzac, the bust of Balzac, Balzac as a walrus. Yeah, Balzac as a walrus. And I just sat there looking at these four sculptures. All of them this big. And I'm going, what the fuck was he doing? What is up with Rodin and Balzac? And he did. He sculpted the face of Balzac. And then he sculpted, you know, this makes sense because the Statue of Liberty, they did this too. They had little miniatures. And I'm like, what is up with all the miniatures? And I'm in the Rodin Museum going, what is up with Balzac? Face, bust, Balzac, and then Balzac as a walrus. It was Balzac as a walrus. And I'm like, what is up with Rodin and Balzac? It made no sense to me. And now it does. He was deconstructing the mental process of sculpting. And he was using the subject of Balzac as the, that makes so much more sense now. So this is why sculptors have little miniatures, is because they are deconstructing the mental process. This now makes so much sense. I have great peace in me now because that logical puzzle is now completed, and it's like, oh, you found the logical comprehension of Balzac and the walrus. I understand it now. We can close that. Breathe. I see more logical comprehension, and it's like sinking in, and I feel great relief because it makes sense. This is a living example of why logic is our mental health. So, and then there was peace. I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. All right. 20 years of trying to figure out that logic puzzle. What is up? So, deconstruction of the mental process. So when I saw that each and every person goes through this, now, my dear friend was then asking the question that it's just something, it's not something everyone does. And that brought us into the hypothesis. Is it something that everybody does? Or is it something that we all should be doing, but society obstructs it? Now, my daughter, my children have zero obstruction of their learning process. I preserved it. That's what a parent is supposed to do. They are supposed to preserve the child's learning process, not do it for them, not interfere with it. You're supposed to just, everyone stand back. The child's learning process is taking effect. Make sure no one touches it. Instead, parents ship them off to schools, and the schools literally get right in there and they shuffle it all up. So you're supposed to preserve your child's learning process, their learning stream. And I hypothesize, I know it, I know it. My logic is screaming, oh no, this is logical. I strongly hypothesize that by the time the child is 15, 12 to 16, this process, the deconstruction of the mental process, intuitively takes over. But the child must be left alone to remain in their learning stream. I believe that this is very much a milestone that the parent can use to go, yes, my child's mental health has been preserved. I believe it's one of the milestones that tells you that your child's development is unobstructed. And I did this when I was 15. My daughter is 16 and she's doing it. And my friend also reported that he's been doing this since he was a child. And I'm going, I believe that if you have an unobstructed learning stream, you're going to do it. However, the learning stream for the majority of us, in fact, for all but 2% of the population, 2% of the population, I'm going to really, really scream that statistic. There are neuroscience who did this research back in the 60s, and they have reconfirmed this over and over again. 2% of the population has an undisrupted learning stream. 98% of us have mental disorder. 98% of us have mental disorder. Mental disorder is the obstruction of your learning process. Are we all paying attention yet? 98% of us, we don't have learning disorders. Society is fucking with it. Big difference. You don't have a learning disorder. Society is fucking us up. And then they're blaming us by saying, you have a mental disorder. No, you fucked with my learning stream. So your learning stream is vital, literally, to your mental health. And 98% of us have it obstructed. So that by the time we are 18 and 20 years old, 98% of us have an obstructed learning stream due to appropriation. So your learning is 100% contingent upon, your mental health is 100% contingent upon your learning stream. And when you have a child who has an unobstructed learning stream, by the time they are 12 to 16 years old, they should be doing the deconstruction of the mental process. So now our goal is to get you back onto this mental process, doing it consciously. So the conscious part of the deconstruction of the mental process is zooming our RAS with our point of view navigation right into something and being able to look at it up close under a microscope in our brains. And it's literally being able to take something and analyzing it in our minds. And then our ability to zoom out and look at it omnisciently, which is exactly what I did here in this example, where I went artist, subject. No, all artists do that. So that's not my daughter thing. That's an artist thing. Let's zoom out even further. Oh, look, everybody is doing it. Therefore, it is a human being thing. Zoom out even further. Yeah, it is a human being who has an unobstructed learning stream thing, which means if you're not doing this, you have an obstructed stream. You absolutely have obstructed learning if you are not doing this. Fascinating. You require pattern recognition to do it. You require common denominators. This one's going to be a little tricky. Common denominators, you're basically sorting things out for anomaly. You're doing grouping. That's really what it is. So you're starting off with learning grouping, and then from grouping, you basically want to list characteristics of group A, characteristics of group B, and then you compare the two. So let's go red and blue. And then when you're comparing red and blue, you're going to get purple. Purple is when they share. So purple would be an anomaly. Now you need to ask the question, is this related or relevant? Just because it's related does not mean it's going to be relevant. This is where a lot of people struggle. In fact, this is one of the characteristics of whether or not someone is considered smart or not, is whether or not they have the ability to sit back and say, oh, that is related versus it's not related. It's related, but it's not relevant. When you are having a conversation, you should not be talking about related topics. You should only be talking about relative topics, relative. So you can have something that's related but irrelevant, and you can have something that's unrelated and irrelevant, and you can have something that's related and relevant. You want related and relevant. And your skill at B, these are all learnable skills. These are all 100% teachable, learnable skills. Conscious awareness goes a long way. When you go to bring up a topic, you want to be asking the question, is this related and relevant? A lot of people will say it's related, but not relevant. Don't bring it up. And then you have some people who will bring up something that's unrelated and irrelevant. And that's when we all look at them going, what are you talking about? And it's because it's logical thought. This is literally logical thought progression or progression of logical thought. And when you're having a conversation and it's logical, as in it is related and relevant, therefore you can string. This is the art of stringing logical code together. You are literally breaking down whether or not something is relevant and related. So now next time you're talking to someone and that someone decides to throw in something out of the left field and you're going, why are you bringing that up? It's because it is both related, or it is not related and relevant. It's one or the other. So when you are studying common denominators, what you're really doing is comparing the grouping of whether or not something is a common denominator, which is when it's related and relevant, or it's an anomaly. An anomaly is when it's related and not relevant. For instance, I want everything with the color red. Everything with the color red is going to pop up. Now I'm going to get purple because it's related, but not relevant. The anomaly would be the purple. It's related, but not relevant. So it's an anomaly. An anomaly means that you need to refine your groupings. You need to refine your search because now you are pulling out related grouping characteristics from other groups that have nothing to do with this. This is what you are doing in common denominators, anomalies, groupings, and something that's related but relevant. In order to do this, what you are really doing, zooming out even further, now we're going to take that deconstruction mental process. We're going to zoom out with our omniscient point of view navigation. We're going to get an even larger view. How does common denominator fit into this entire equation? Once you have the common denominators, you can start ordering. Now you are looking at the ordering process, which is mathematical sequencing. Once you start getting into sequencing, now what you are really doing is analyzing catalyst or response. This is the literal order of operations of chain reaction science. So we're up here going, all right, chain reaction science, let's zoom on in. And the ability to zoom out and then zoom back in is your point of view navigation. This is literally introducing this to you. We're going to be talking a lot about your point of view navigation because the majority of mental illness comes from your lack of discipline on the point of view navigation. So the more you become aware of point of view navigation, it's basically undisciplined math. Mental illness is just undisciplined math. Every mathematician is going to be like, see, I told you, you need math. Every mathematician is just going to be like, I told you. Yes, every mathematician is about to get validated. You need math. Because when you don't use mathematics in a disciplined science in your mental health, you're going to end up with mental illness. So mathematics is undisciplined math. Now watch this. Math is actually a linguistics problem because math is actually logic point 2. Logic is math point 1, but our society removes logic from the entire equation. So we skip logic, go right into the shorthand, which is math, which is why most of us find mathematics confusing, is because you're missing part 1, which is logic. Logic is actually mathematics. Mathematics is just the shorthand. This is why you need logic, is because it keeps your math in check and in order. So once you have the logic, you'll be able to organize and discipline your math skills and then use the shorthand to plug in all of the equations so they're not these long-ass proofs. Let's go a little bit further behind that. So again, omniscient navigational point of view, we're going to span out, we're going to shift this over here. The core foundation of language, of logic is word linguistics. So now you're getting to the art of language linguistics logic, which requires reading, writing, which also requires linguistics, etymology, and communication, which is all the foundation of logic, which is the foundation of math, which is the foundation of physics. So when you hone in on this area from reading, writing, theater stage, people, theater stage, reading, writing, theater stage, language, linguistics, now you're getting into logic, now you're getting into math. So taxonomy is a huge part of all of this. Taxonomy is a huge part of linguistics. You really need to study taxonomy in order to study language, logic, words, and then math. Math is, and this is going to be really amusing, but math is really unnecessary if you have logic. You're just going to have like pages and pages of math of mathematical proofs. The math is the shorthand, the symbolism that allows you to condense these long-ass pages of proofs down into a little symbol. That's why we have math, is because one of my formulas takes up 4 pages. So instead of writing out 4 pages, I can just use math symbology and plug it in. So really what mathematics is symbology of logic. That's really what mathematics is. So order of operations, mathematical sequencing. And we're going to go ahead and bring this all together and then teach you how to do the entire mathematical formula in sequencing, which is the study of logic. That's actually all we're doing here is, this is logic. And this is how to use your brain, which is why I said in the beginning, we're going to call this logic because it's really logic. It's really logic, which is mental diversification. It's strategically using logic to discipline your subconscious mind so you can be healthy. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.